I started the organization fresh out of high school when I was 18 years old.
So what like motivated you to do this? It seems I'm not going to be like Patrick Davis and
Bless his heart.
yeah.
So I graduated high school, and shortly after that summer, I went to the Charlottesville rally. And of course, it was chaotic. It was very eye-opening for me. I was very green in a lot of these things, and I learned what not to do in many ways. I learned that there is something valuable in nationalism there, and I met a lot of great people. You know, you meet a lot of people who aren't so great, and things were kind of chaotic back then.
There's some scammy people in the industry. You learn real quick. There are some legitimate people that like don't
But
offer
you learn
anything.
the difference. You learn who is and who isn't. And I was able to discern that yes, there is something genuine in patriotism. There is a cause here that's worth something, but I didn't think it was being handled properly. And I had ins and outs with other people in, you know, the movement, quote unquote, at the time. And at a certain point, I decided, you know what, somebody has to do it. Nobody else is doing what I think needs to be done. So I stepped forward and I created an organization. And for many years, it was a very difficult task because you have to convey faith in a vision that is hard to imagine for people who have never
Everyone says you're crazy. Yeah.
experienced it. Yes, and I want to build a certain lifestyle. I want to build communities that people can be engaged in, something that can really change people's lives. And for a number of years, it was faith. It was very faith-based, and we had a mission, and I'm very happy to say that a lot of what we promised, a lot of the vision that we started out with has come to fruition. Of course, the country is not like we like it, but we are creating spaces within the country that do mirror and reflect and provide an example of what we want society to look like in general. So the motivation was that I wanted something to happen. I wanted something to happen which wasn't already happening. And I wasn't somebody who came out to seek leadership. I was somebody who had an opportunity to do the right thing. And that's always what I've done. I'm not in it for personal gain. I don't, we don't take public donations. I don't ingratiate myself in these things. I live a very meager, modest lifestyle.
Yeah, and I mean, you look like you're being very casual. That's what I was wondering. The amount of time you must spend in this organization, because I've been hanging out with you, realize how organized it is, must be like a full-time job. So it's like
more than full-time. Every waking hour.
So I was wondering, like, how you manage to do this? You must just, I don't want to know about your finance too much, because these people try to they'll try to cash, they'll try to ruin all your money, which they've done it to me too. So that's why I don't really share any ways I make money. So I won't ask those questions, but I know it must be like, I'm looking at your organization, I'm like, wow, this must be like a full-time job.
No, and people, that's actually, so it is, of course, it's every hour I have, everything I do, it's my life's passion.
But you love it, right?
Absolutely. And I think a lot of people, I'm really lucky to have found my life's passion practically when I was a teenager. And I've been, my whole adult life, I've been organizing. This is something which I like to think I'm very experienced in. And it is something which has absolutely motivated everything, every decision I've made for the past, going on 10 years, 8 years. And when it comes to money, I think people are surprised. That's where a big Fed accusation comes from. It's like, how do they fund these things?
Losing money, exactly.
Nothing we do is something that a regular person can do. How do you think the U-Haul company exists? Well, normal people rent the trucks. It's quite possible, and people buy their own dress code. And they travel collectively. You carpool. I'm sure millions of people visit national parks every year.
People take their own money to do things they love. That's what it's like. A lot of people train jiu-jitsu, but unless you're like one of the pros, you're paying to do that.
Exactly.
You're buying your own gis. You're paying to travel. So exactly. If you're passionate about something, you do it.
Yeah, and the coordination, people think, wow, how can you be so coordinated? You look back years in the past, you look back at 2018, 19, 2020, we weren't marching in step. We didn't have drums. Our flagpoles were shorter,
You've been evolving as you go, learning, growing.
And it's culture building, and we have a culture in the organization that assimilates people into this higher frame of discipline and mindfulness, and that's something that we've built, and it's and we act in such a way because we want to reflect what we want society to look like. We are strong and coordinated and immensely, deeply in love with our country, because that's what we want more people to be like.
Yeah, no, I love the country too. That's where I have strong agreement. And I strongly believe the body and mind are connected. People to walk around, people weren't walking around fat like 50 years ago. It's like, it's not okay. People should be shamed for that.
Yes.
There was a reason why we shame people. It's like, I have a bunch of Asian friends in their cultures. They'll shame them if they gain, they do it early too. Like the mothers will like gain 5 pounds. They'll be like, you're so fat. And they're antis the whole thing. So it's like a shame thing. We don't see very many fat Asians, do you?
No, and that's actually something really interesting. When Joe Rogan, and I think he was at the very outset, of the Fed accusation thing when we did, I think it was 2021 when we did our march in DC. He's like, oh, these guys look so fit, 101st Airborne, they just got out of buds. I was like, that's actually a compliment, thank you. But it kind of goes to show how crazy. And people are like, where are the fat people? Where are the fat people? It's like they're in there if you look hard enough.
Yeah, right.
But why is it so crazy that we have a group of men
making yourselves
who
better.
don't tolerate that?
Yeah, you make yourselves better. You got to hold each other to accountability. All your friends are losing weight. You're like, oh crap, I better do it too. We need to do that in society. Keep each other to high standards. Push them not to watch porn, not to do drugs. I'm not saying I've never done drugs or alcohol, but it's if my friends aren't doing it, I'm not going to do it either. If all of a sudden your friends are doing it, it's like. That's when you start making these mistakes.
It's about self-control. And it's also about a realization, because when you have this personal discipline, it's not just about yourself. It's about a realization that there is something greater than you, right? And why aren't you doing drugs? Why are you in good shape? Why do you want to live longer? Well, there is the personal, there is to ourselves, but there's also for our posterity. You know, you want to live longer so you can see your kids grow up. You want to be better in shape so that if disaster strikes your community, if something happens, you're there, you can help them. You want to abstain from drugs because you want to set an example for other people. And because you believe in something greater than yourself, you believe in the country, the community, you know, the civilization that we embody and the virtues that are, again, inherited through that. You know, the torch that has been passed over for American history for hundreds of years, ever since the settlers first arrived on the coasts of the Atlantic. It is something which we need to practice because, you know, you are just a part of the nation's story. You know, all of us, we're just coming and going, one thread in a great tapestry that is America's history. And you need to leave it better than you found it. At the very least, you need to fight for it because, you know, there is, you know, people have religious beliefs, and that's very, very, you know, very respectful. But the one very certain form of immortality is through your children, through the people who remember you and your deeds in this world. You know?
There's nothing more important than your children. So you're very pro-family?
Extremely pro-family. You know, Patriot Front has had a very long-standing pro-life stance, but not just pro-life. It's larger. I think actually making it everything, and you see
raising your children properly. It's not just right. It's like really, you know, your children should be everything to you. You know, you got to be pro-family, but there's nothing more important
because everything's connected with it. Because, you know, I feel people boil it down too much when they say it's all about abortion. It's like, no, well, why do you care about children? What's the point? It's because life is sacred. And it's also because the family is the building block of the country, of the nation. You have the individual, then you have the family, the community, the nation, and then the race. But one of the core building blocks of culture and learning and education, all those things, is the family unit. And if you can attack a country, a nation, a culture's family unit, and you can dissolve that, you can dissolve it by making men and women constantly at each other's throats. You can set everybody up with unrealistic expectations. Condition the economy so people cannot afford to have children, cannot afford to own a home. You can rot out the pillars that hold up society, and you can make a nation ripe for conquest. And that's what they've done to us.
Yeah, you're right. Traditionally, it was like the man would lead, you know, and that's what most women prefer too. But now, like a lot of times, both of them have to work, and then your kids, whether you hand your kids to daycare, like
have somebody else raise them.
Yeah, their brains developing in those young ages. It's so much better if the mother could stay and take care of the kid, and they just. It's like the father, you want to be close to your kids, still be there, but they really need the mother for nurturing. And it's like, that's why I see this off topic, but you see like handing these kids to like two gay men taking this kid, and it's like these little kids, they absolutely need a mother for certain things. I can't read young kids. There's certain things we can't read. There's certain things the man's needed for too, but it's like, I mean, that was an issue I used to have no opinion on until I seen a video of him handing a kid to gay guys, and I was just disgusted.
Well, that's something that we're doing in the organization. You know, we recently did a bunch of Thanksgiving gatherings, you know, all across the country, dozens and dozens, hundreds of people all over, bringing together their wives, children, parents, grandparents, you know, other siblings and cousins and things like that, because, you know, people don't have big Thanksgivings anymore. And I know it's off topic, but our holidays have been attacked. You know, everything's commercialized. And, you know, we have people, and, you know, you can have a proper, upright cultural landscape because especially with the youth, this is incredibly impactful years. If you're a young man, you know, you look at your father and what kind of man, you know, do you want to see in your father? You know, somebody with peers, somebody with a mission, somebody with a goal in life, somebody who's held to a higher standard. It's incredibly important in these community spaces that we build and that we provide, help young men who don't have families gain the confidence and experience to go out and, you know, whether it's financially, whether it's personally, whether they need to just be generally better in life, we provide that impetus. And with men who do have families, you know, we provide a space where we can help normalize our ideas, where we can, you know, convince people who might not be super acquainted with these things that what we believe is healthy, it's natural, it's forthright, and, you know, we can help children, help the youth keep them away from these terrible influences. You know,
it's so easy to fall into that. You know, and I myself have fallen into bad stuff, and it's like, you know, fighting helped me so much. And in fighting, there's so many troubled people that go in there, they get into fighting, but it makes them better men. Most of the guys that get towards the top, there's exceptions, end up being great men because it gives them a brotherhood, something to focus on, like a mission. A lot of men don't have a mission anymore. They're just kind of floating through life.